The opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Thank you so much, Mary Holland, Sujata Gibson, Chad Davenport, and Michael Kane, and Children's Health Defense for making this happen and making it me able to go back to school.
I was muted. Good morning, America. Good morning, world. Good morning, CHD. Welcome once again. My name is Michael Kane. I'm the Director of Advocacy at Children's Health Defense. Before we get into the show, that was Sarah Doe, the young 16-year-old girl whose medical exemption was finally accepted thanks to a lawsuit backed by Children's Health Defense. And today, she went to school. There is Sarah right now walking, actually 2 hours ago, walking into school. She didn't want to make a big fuss about it. She just wanted to cross that threshold and get into her school and be normal and get an education like everybody else. Thanks to Children's Health Defense, Sujata Gibson, Chad Davenport. That's happening. That's happening today. And we are going to be talking about restoring medical sanity in insane New York with the legendary Rita, Palma, and John Gilmore. After that, farmers and the One Big Beautiful Bill, the amazing Meryl Nass, Dr. Meryl Nass, will be talking to Joe Maxwell about that. And we will have a people's study story as well, too. So stick around for everything we got going on here. It's another great show on CHD TV. But first, as always, some news. Do you live in insane New York? Are you a parent whose child is being denied access to the first day of school, which is today, over vaccine records? You want to get on this Zoom September 3rd, Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. Attorney Chad Davenport is going to come on to talk about what your rights are as a parent. Can your child be turned away the first day of school or second or third? And what is an in-process student? Now, this Zoom is not for children that are fully unvaccinated. This is for partially vaccinated children or those who are almost fully vaccinated, for you to know your rights and what you can and can't do. This isn't going to fix everybody's problem, but it is very relevant for hundreds and hundreds, maybe even more, parents out there in New York. The link to this is in the show notes, or go to teachersforchoice.org. or autismactionnetwork.org, and you can register for the Zoom. All the information is there. Speaking of medical insanity in New York, shout out to Representative Stubbe from Florida for introducing a bill for the first time to bring religious exemptions to vaccinations back to all 50 states. A press release just went out on Friday. Over 50 groups are supporting this, including the McCullough Foundation, Pierre Corey's Clinic, Moms for Liberty, Children's Health Defense, and so many, Vaccine Safety Research Foundation, and so many more are supporting this important bill. As many know, in New York, Connecticut, California, Maine, there is no religious exemption. There is no opt-out at all. We'll be talking a little bit about that bill because John and Rita played a major role in getting D.C. buzzing about religious exemptions and getting this national conversation to begin. There's a rumble in the Bronx that's coming. Pierre Corey and Steve Kirsch will be debating Debunk the Funk and some other dude whose name I can't say, so I can't remember. September 13th, tickets can be purchased at pangburn.com. This is in the Bronx, in Bronxlandia. I don't believe it's accessible by public transportation. You're going to need a car or a carpool. I think the tickets are even a little expensive, like $60 or something. But I want to encourage you to go if you can. They need people from our side there with eyes on what's actually happening, because this one's going to be contentious. Steve Kirsch is excited because he's saying it's the first time anyone's accepted a debate. It's the first time anyone's come. So please check that out. The website is there, pang-burn.com, and get a ticket if you can do that. I'm the founder of Teachers for Choice, but I got to say, I'm so busy, I'm missing some of the important teacher news. Well, John Gilmore didn't miss it. He picked up this story. New York City Mayor Adams is hiring thousands of new workers, but has yet to rehire the thousands of teachers, firefighters, nurses, cops, and other workers who refused the COVID shot, many of whom already had COVID before they were fired. These new hires are all scabs with the blessing of NYC's teacher union, Michael Mulgrew, and the American Federation of Teacher President, Randy Weingarten. Disgusting. And that's a stadium, that picture of newly hired teachers. They've hired 3,000. They need at least 4,000 more that they don't have hired. Still blocking the unvaccinated teachers. Speaking of teachers, check this out. The New York Post has just broke that new teachers, 3,000 new teachers beg for donations for basic classroom supplies, despite NYC's record-breaking per pupil spending tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars per pupil, hiring new teachers, not allowing unvaccinated teachers back to their jobs, and can't give pencil and paper and construction paper. And what a sad state of affairs. In important national news, Senator Blumenthal has flip-flopped all over the place. After claiming he wanted to do something about vaccine injuries, Blumenthal lashes out at RFK Jr. for, quote, anti-vax agenda, end quote. Now, I helped Mary Holland, Brian Hooker, and Polly Tommy write a letter to Blumenthal thanking him for the comments he made over a month ago, almost 2 months ago now, at Voices for the Vaccine Injured, where we were asking for a conversation with him. He completely ignored it. We emailed it to him. We snail mailed it to him. We called the office. We talked to multiple staffers. We had the letter hand delivered to the attention of Cassandra Navarro. Senator Blumenthal, you know who she is. She's one of your health leads in the office. No one even acknowledged receipt of the letter. Mary Holland said that's bizarre. Yeah, it's definitely bizarre. It also seems just like politics as usual over on the other side of the aisle there. Everyone's heard this. This is big news. Menares has been fired as the head of the CDC. Trump fires CDC director who clashed with RFK Jr. over vaccine policy. Now, a lot of you might remember Dave Weldon was the original pick to head CDC, a true medical freedom hero. He wasn't even able to get a confirmation hearing because the Republicans stalled on the votes. Menares was the compromise candidate, and Kennedy and Trump said, not a good enough compromise. She's out. And they put in Jim O'Neill as the acting CDC director. I have some concerns regarding, here's the HHS tweet announcing this. I have some concerns with Jim O'Neill on health data, but when it comes to the vaccine agenda, I'm pretty convinced he's on board with the Trump-Kennedy agenda. I think we're going to see this boulder start to roll downhill. And what did we just see? We just see President Trump tweeting at Pfizer saying, hey, you guys are telling me stuff. You're not showing Bobby Kennedy. You're not showing anybody else. Put up or shut up. That's what we just got from President Trump 4 days after Menares is ousted. I think that's a clue. I mean, that's just me. I think it's a clue. Maybe it's a not. But I think we're going to see this fall. This agenda is going to move pretty intensely. My good friend, attorney Ray Flores, had a minor but important victory. Federal court reopens case of 24-year-old who died of COVID vaccine-induced myocarditis. Ray brought this in federal court in D.C. challenging the PrEP Act. One judge threw this case out, but in the PrEP Act, it says there must be a 3-judge panel to do that. So Ray filed a brief saying, you dismissed this improperly, and the judge who dismissed it improperly said, you're right. I did dismiss it improperly, and he's moving it forward to a 3-judge panel. Ray tells me this is the only case challenging the PrEP Act in Washington, D.C., the way that the act is laid out, stating you must challenge it ever. He's saying this is the first time it happened. Very, very important case. We want to keep our eyes on that. Okay. And with that, now we are going to bring on our guest discussing regaining medical sanity in insane New York. Let's bring on Rita, Palma, and John Gilmore. Thank you so much for joining me today. How are you doing?
Great.
Morning, Michael.
So, you guys have been doing this in New York for way longer than me. I've been following you and learning from you, getting your mentorship. We are at a really remarkable time. You know, we opened up the show today with the clip of Sarah Doe, who just got back regarding her medical exemption. This seems to be changing the face of what the medical exemption looks like in New York, which has been really, truly decimated to a completely unnatural point where there's no way that the medical exemptions that are accepted truly reflect the children that actually need it. But we're starting to see a shift there. Rita, why don't you talk to me a little bit about the shift that we're seeing, how this is resonating, what you're hearing from moms in our community throughout New York? Speak to that a little bit.
Okay, so the shift right now, it's a real mix of what's going on. You know, as of the August 12th decision, it opened up the medical exemption. So essentially rolled it back to the original law, which merely states that an MD or a DO states that a shot may be detrimental, not will be, may be detrimental to the health of the child, then the child qualifies for medical exemption. That information is starting to, get out there, but it's a tough sell on doctors and school districts. So we have a real mixed bag of things going on. Some school districts are fighting back, and there's a very small group of law firms that control all the school districts in New York, right? So some of them are fighting back. Some of the school districts are saying, I don't care what kind of bad legal advice you give me, I'm going to improve these these medical exemptions. And parents are, what I'm finding is that most parents are kind of stuck in that old paradigm of, no, we need a long list of precautions and contraindications and conditions that per se fit the ACIP model. We don't need that anymore. The doctor rules. Your treating doctor is 100% empowered to say whether or not this shot may be detrimental to the health of the child, has to give a reason, but it doesn't have to be a dissertation on, this child's medical profile. So people are still asking me questions like, well, I need to find a doctor. And yes, that is kind of the challenge, because we have to, our job as moms, dads, parents, advocates, we have to educate and empower the school districts and the doctors to understand what August 12th meant. Thankfully, CHD, Chad Davenport, Sujata Gibson, Mary Holland, they're all cranking out documentation to back up the decision and to educate and empower. But there's a tremendous amount of activity going on out there right now. And thank God CHD is on top of it. So I think at the end of the day, and that I think the end of the day is coming soon, it'll all be straightened out, and the school districts will toe the line as far as what Judge Gary Brown said in his courtroom that day. But right now, we're getting everything from A to Z. So that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, no, that's actually a really good summary. John, why don't you just jump in? What do you have to add to that?
Yeah, well, just to give people a little background, because it's kind of hard, I think, for people in sort of rest of the country to understand how bad things are in New York. But it has been extremely difficult to get a medical exemption in New York for a very long time. Okay, my son is 25 years old. We had, when he was, 1, 2, 3 years old, we had at least half a dozen doctors say, don't give this kid a shot again. And I asked every single one of them, could I have a medical exemption? And they said, no, 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 because the Department of Health will come after me. They'll come after my license. Go get yourself a religious exemption, which is what I did, and thousands of other parents did as well. And of course, as probably most people know, in 2019, we had our religious exemption pulled, and sort of a really kind of disgusting political move by then Governor Andrew Cuomo. Now, things have changed in New York, okay? Because what has happened under the current governor, Kathy Hochul, is they are actively going after the medical exemptions of children that have had them sometimes for 10, 12 years, okay? Parents who've never had a problem, their exemption has been approved year after year, and now all of a sudden what we're seeing is they are just arbitrarily pulling them, right? And it's very difficult to get information out of the state of New York, okay? They don't publish things they don't want to publish, and they simply just, if you file a Freedom of Information Act request, they simply ignore it and then deny it, and basically just, well, if you don't like it, sue us, right? But, and actually, an article just came out, I think today, from the Times-Human, it might have been yesterday, and if this article is correct, at the present, there are only 600 medical exemptions amongst the 2.6 million children in public and private school in the state of
Wow.
okay.
John, that's statewide, 600
That is
exemptions?
statewide, okay. That is 1 out of 5,000 kids, okay, have a medical exemption in the state of New York, right? That's 1/10 of the national average. Okay, put that in perspective, right? So basically, the state of New York has declared war against medically fragile kids who can't get vaccines. They don't
right.
really care what's going on with you. They want complete obedience. They want complete uniformity. And if you don't like it, well, you can just move to Texas.
You know, this
homeschool.
So clearly there are disabled kids, medically fragile kids that should be in school that are not, that are actively being denied and cut out of the education system. One of the important things about the Sarah Doe victory was the massive amounts of people we brought out. And quite honestly, the three of us here are the ones that brought them out. I mean, we were the one with our networks, our social media platforms, our email blasts. Children's Health Defense National got involved, right? And we got nearly, or some say over 300 people to that courthouse. There it is. When Sarah Doe had won, we just had a massive amount of people. One of the other things that happened last week, John and Rita, you went to the Oceanside School Board meeting that they had in August, right before the school year was set to open. There was a lot of tension last week. Were they going to appeal? Were they going to try to keep Sarah Doe out of school with an emergency motion to court? It was possible. But you guys went and directly talked to the superintendent and the board trustees. And I actually want to go, we'll start with John. Let's show John's comment that he made that I believe ended in a standing ovation, actually. Let's start with that.
Please state your name and
Yes, my name is John Gilmore.
Okay.
I'm here because, as we all know, a couple of weeks ago, the Oceanside School District lost a case in federal court concerning denying a young girl who's going to school in the district the opportunity to go to school. The school district has up until September 11th to decide whether they want to appeal this decision or not. And I strongly encourage you not to go forward with an appeal. We had a girl who, this is according to what's been published in the media, she was badly injured by vaccines, right? She had half a dozen doctors say she should not get any more vaccines because it could do extensive damage, could possibly even threaten her life. Yet for some reason, the school district decided not to allow her to have a medical exemption, which is allowed under New York law, under public health.
I'm sorry, point of information here. We're not supposed to be discussing personnel matters.
If you want to try to recite New York State law the way you perceive it, you can, but it doesn't mean that you have all your facts together, but we'll listen to you.
Right, and the New York public health law says that all it requires is a New York licensed physician who believes that a shot may injure a child is sufficient for a medical exemption. She had 6 doctors.
If you want to talk general, that's okay, but we're not going to stay here and talk about anything.
Well, we actually don't know which child we're talking about because she's in the papers or the legal documents as Sarah Doe. Right.
So that's very much appreciated, and in a similar vein and in a very generic term, what I can say to you and to our community, most importantly, there's no question that the health and safety of all of our students and staff is always our utmost priority. And to that end, we also follow the law, which in this case we had.
2 more things, okay? The judge agreed with me, not with the district. You guys did not follow the law, which is why you lost the case.
Okay.
Second thing I want to bring out, Oceanside received not just national, but international media coverage over this incident. You're not looking really, really good out there in the media world. And one last thing, don't you guys have anything better to do with the money that's being spent on this than to try and keep a girl out of school? So, thank you.
There you go.
Excellent. That is excellent. And it's so important that these decisions are happening from faceless superintendents and faceless doctors, especially the doctors. They actually keep that information as tight as they can. You got to sue them to get it on a legal document before you know for sure who the person is. It's so important that we hold them accountable. There was some 50 people in that audience, all dressed in pink, showing support for Sarah there. John, and this isn't your first school board meeting. This isn't the first time you've done stuff like this. Just talk about the importance of how these actions, we need these. This isn't just the lawyers. It's not just the judges deciding this. It's us. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, one of the things I was trying to do there is to make those people, the superintendent there and the school board, one, realize what they're doing and make them realize that they are the decision makers. Okay, it's not the state of New York. It's not the consulting physician that works for the school district. They decided that they were going to ignore letters from 6 doctors and keep this kid out of school. It's just absolutely insane. And I think, and I also, as I pointed out twice, that they're being watched. Okay, and school board people are members. They're minor politicians, right? They got to get elected, right? And the superintendent has got to keep the board happy. Otherwise, the superintendent's looking for a job, right? And I think that's really, really important. They're used to hiding behind all the bureaucracies and stuff like that. And I think as we go forward with more of these kinds of things, which I'm sure we're going to be doing, we've got to make them realize that they're being held responsible for their decisions and that they actually personally can end up in court.
Excellent. So. That's so important. That is fantastic. And this is where all of us come into play. No one should be sitting back, sipping a latte, thinking John, Rita, Mike, CHD, anyone's taking care of this for you. That's not what's happening. God bless the 50 people who did come out, who, especially those, the overwhelming majority who were respectful and held themselves in the right way. Rita, you had a very interesting comment that you made as well, too. We're going to show that, and I'm going to ask for your comment. We're going to have a little conversation about it. Let's show Rita Palma's comment at the Oceanside School Board meeting last week.
My name is Rita, and my kids are out of school.
Okay.
I have a question, and I guess it's a simple yes or no. So the attorney the law firm that you secured to fight to keep Sarah Doe out of school, is that like your district attorney, or was it outside counsel? Did you hire them as outside counsel? Yes, no? Quick, this is I don't want a conversation, just yes or no.
I don't have that. The answer is I don't know. I don't have that answer in front of me.
How can you not know that? I mean, you secure a law firm.
So first of all, please respectfully understand that people have come to the mic and made certain statements that I want to just once again say that there are definitely different, very strong, differently perspectives on it, which we're not at liberty to share. Okay. But that being said, to answer your very important question, we belong as a school district with an insurance reciprocal. It's called NYSIR, NYSIR. So when these kinds of cases come up, which are a little outside the norm of the routine things that school attorneys do, we circulate it through NYSIR, and they help us make the decisions as to how to proceed, and they provide the attorneys. So we pay into this reciprocal and this consortium. We don't pay per case.
So you're telling me that the attorneys that fought to keep the student out of school was not a separate bill?
You're representing it in a certain way that, again, I'm not.
I'm representing it accurately.
No.
They sat there in the courtroom and they fought to keep the student out of school.
Okay, we're not going to respond to that.
You package it a different way.
We're not going to respond to any type of student situation.
But you're
that's on our
objecting
district.
to my phraseology. It's 100% accurate. That's what they do. I mean, lawyers fight, and that's what.
I'm not going to respond to you, but if you'd like to keep on speaking, you can.
Okay, so that was an outside law firm, and you're saying that the fees that you pay into this consortium, it takes care of it, and you don't pay one single dollar separately to them? You sure about that?
Go ahead. Any other questions?
No. That's how you described it to me.
Yep. Any other questions?
That's how you explained it to me, Ms. Harrington. I'm repeating it back to you. Is this accurate?
This ain't designed to be a back and forth.
You don't like what I'm saying.
No, I'm not saying we don't like it.
Questions.
Anything else that you'd like to say?
By the way, in 48 other states in America, this would not be an issue. And you talk about the health of all children. 48 other states can function with a medical exemption. Oh, you have a doctor's note? Hey, great. Welcome to the first day of school. So please, all right, don't. By the way, whatever law firm that you're using, they're giving you really bad legal advice. And that happens. That happens in school districts. It happened in a school district that I tangled with many years ago. And the law firm ended up getting fired because they were disseminating such poor information.
So this is really interesting comment, holding their feet to the fire, making them uncomfortable. I agree with you. You stated the facts to them, and they didn't like the facts. They disagreed with your phraseology, which was 100% accurate. I want to talk first about a point you drew out that I don't think any of us knew before you asked that question. Nicer, this syndicate that they consortium that they pay into for special legal matters. To me, that's kind of shocking, because what it does is it makes the superintendent say, why wouldn't we sue them? Why wouldn't we say, no, it's not going to cost me anything? So the system ends up being structured and set up purposefully to challenge medically fragile children to be kept out of school. Yeah, go ahead. I want to hear you.
Yeah, but we don't really know that, because she didn't answer the question. Those weasels wouldn't answer any of my direct questions. They didn't want to know. They control the money. Right? I mean, it's a public institution, and you, no matter what member of the public, whether it's a community member or not, I have a right to ask whatever questions I want. I have a right to foil up any information that I want. So they didn't want to be asked any questions about the money. So my suspicion is that there's money just gushing out of the school district to kick this one child out of school, and they just tried to steer the conversation and the non-answers away from anything I was trying to get at. So, and I don't really think that this consortium, that they pay this one flat fee and they get all the defense they need. I think maybe, I don't know, what is it? Like, do they get a break? Do they get a discounted rate? Do they get, maybe it's, they pay, I don't know, $20,000 into it a year, and then they get $20,000 worth of legal expenses paid. Who knows? They completely avoided the question. So, and all that does is pique the interest of people in the audience who get how much money the average school district wastes, like me. And I'm going to start, I'm going to, foil up some contracts and some bills and some invoices, and there better not be any redactions in that, because about 10 years ago, the New York State legislature, when the Republicans had the majority in the Senate, they put some teeth into the FOIA laws, which is kind of an interesting fact. And if you substantially prevail, meaning the win is a slam dunk win, you get your attorney's fees back. So you can sue them. Yeah, you have to get a lawyer to do it. But then the lawyer has, if it's a real obvious denial and it goes on for a while and they exceed all the deadlines and all of that, then they have to pay again, and then they look worse. So, and we have a couple of school districts, one actually kind of close to me, that they're going to be waging war against a 5-year-old autistic boy, throwing him out of kindergarten, and the whole situation makes me cry. And if they put up the fight that I think they're going to put up, they're going to have a lot of Patchogue residents knowing how they're wasting their money. And what Long Islander says, yeah, my taxes are fine, no problem. I've got money to spare to pay that $25,000 to $30,000 in property taxes. So the school district is free to spend anyway. So see how it goes.
Rita, that's a really good answer. It makes sense. They probably pay in to a cap. Once you exceed the cap, no one's paying your lawyer bills for you. Then you have to pay more. Once you go to federal court, if you appeal, yada, yada, yada. No way all of that is just covered. Excellent point. We're almost out of time. I want to bring up one last thing. And John, I want you to talk about this. Sarah Doe is an interesting student because she had a religious exemption of vaccination until 2019, when the religious exemption was repealed. Her parents, stuck between a rock and a hard place, betrayed their faith and are dying over it till this day, got her the catch-up schedule, the 2-month 18-shot, not vaccine, 18-shot catch-up schedule, which is multiple antigens and other things. And she is now medically fragile and disabled for the rest of her life.
Yes.
This case not only speaks to the medical exemption, it speaks to the religious exemption. We don't have a ton of time, but why don't you just make that connection? Things are happening on the federal level as now too. Take us out on this point also.
Well, yeah, they're sort of intimately intertwined at this point. I think what this sort of indicates is that there is just this antipathy towards people with faith, and it's also become political in that anybody who doesn't agree with the sort of vaccine program is sort of considered some like a heretic, right? And they need to be punished. And it's getting more and more difficult to sort of extract both of these from each other, right? They like to say that there's these really clear, this is religious, that's medical, and it's just not that way in the real world, And just one thing I just wanted to end on is this girl was injured, Sarah Doe, but there's many other cases like that where children had a religious exemption. Their parents got the shots. The child was actually injured by the catch-up shots, totally documented, and yet the school districts are still trying to prevent them from getting a medical exemption. It's really, really, it's wrong.
It's brutal.
I mean,
It's brutal.
it's brutal.
It's brutal.
Yeah.
It feels almost like child sacrifice. And I don't like to
It
be
is.
hyperbolic,
It does.
but when people really see the facts in New York, it becomes so horrifying. It's hard to even. I mean, I just get exasperated over it. And I'm so sorry. We're out of time now. This is a great conversation. Everybody, check out the links in the show notes here. Wednesday night, if you're in New York, we're going to have another amazing Zoom about what your rights are as a parent here in New York. John Gilmore, Autism Action Network, Rita Palma, My Kids, My Choice, my dear friends and mentors and legends. Thank you so much for coming on with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Take care.
Speaking of legends, it is my every Tuesday pleasure now to be able to turn it over to the world-renowned, remarkable Dr. Meryl Nass. Let's give it to Meryl.
Good morning. It's great to be back, and welcome everyone. I'm really happy to follow Michael Caine, who is an old friend and is probably the most enthusiastic person in this entire movement for freedom and health. So Michael is a wonderful person. I have an amazing guest today. His name is Joe Maxwell. Joe is a farmer. Joe is a lawyer, and Joe has been a legislator in the state of Missouri. He has also been the lieutenant governor, and he has co-founded an organization that I just adore called Farm Action. Its website is farmaction.us, and it can be hard to find, but there are amazing things on this website. And today we're going to be talking about monopolies, which is important to everyone in the US and the world, because monopolies are they're a reason why we don't have a freedom of choice, why prices are high, why companies have tremendous political power, and so the regular people can't get anything done. And so this organization and Joe have helped to create a wonderful report, almost a book, about the history of monopolies in the United States and what's going on now. And I want to bring Joe in and let him just tell us, what is a monopoly? How did they get here? Laws were passed to try to control them, but they're not working. And just start telling us the whole story, Joe, and I'll interrupt very occasionally.
Well, Meryl, it's a pleasure to be on, and I joined early, and it was great to hear the previous show and the fight that's going on for freedom. Here we're talking about freedom to have the opportunity to have choice in our food. Today, a handful of companies control most all aspects of our farm and food system. Four companies control over 85% of all beef, just to give you an example. Almost four companies control almost 70% of pork. In seed, four companies control as much as 70% of corn seed, 80% of soybean seed. So what we see is just a handful of companies controlling both the input side for farmers as well as the purchasing of the cattle or livestock that's raised. And finally, when you go to the grocery store, you may see a lot of labels, but four companies, if you're seeing different labels on beef, four companies control 85% of everything in that meat counter.
So let me interrupt you and repeat.
Most of those companies are foreign based. So they're not even U.S. domestic. I just wanted to add that little point.
Yeah. So, okay. So what Joe is saying is that although individual ranchers and farmers may be growing this stuff or growing the animals, when they have to be processed and then packaged and sold out, you've got a bottleneck of only four companies that are controlling the slaughter and processing of 85% of beef, almost 75% of pork, most of the corn, most of the rice, most of the wheat, etc. And so what's happened is the monopolization has happened at the level of processing and also at the level of sales. So, and in addition, what he was just saying, he said inputs and outputs. And what his writer of this wonderful report, Musharbash, said, and I'm going to quote him basically, farmers are sandwiched between an input monopoly. So the things they need, the seeds, the fertilizers, the equipment, those are all coming from industries that have been completely monopolized. And then they're selling to the processors, and those are also monopolies. So farmers are sandwiched between two monopolies, and that is why they can't make any money. And that is why the consumer is left with very little choice as to quality or types of food that they can eat. So that's why you can't find as many fruits and vegetables in the market as you used to. That's why the quality of meat in the grocery stores has gone down. So, okay. Go ahead. Go ahead. Joe.
The thing, Meryl, to think about a monopoly is, we live in our economy as a capitalist system. One of the fundamental factors that allow a capitalist system to work is the issue of competition. When we're talking about monopolies, we're talking about companies controlling so much of a particular sector that there isn't any competition. There's no checks and balances. Supply and demand rules, economic rules, or law, as we economists say, don't work. So that's what the problem is. That much control, the economics, the capitalist system does not function other than for the benefit of those monopolies, for profit, for choice, to deny opportunity, to deny individuals opportunity to enter the market, and deny consumers choice.
Right. So how did this come to be?
It came to be because starting about Ronald Reagan in about 1980, when Ronald Reagan became president, it has worked itself through both Democrat and Republican administrations since then. Government just took a back seat to our antitrust laws. So we have the Clayton Act and the Sherman Act, and we have the Packers and Stockyards Act, all voted at the early 1900s or just before 1900. But then when Reagan comes along, we have this whole concept of efficiency rule. We want to help consumers. We're going to do that by ignoring those rules, and we're going to step back and not enforce them. And Republicans and Democrat administrations alike took a back seat, and what happened was they allowed big to get bigger until it's so big, consumers have no choice. And the problem is in agriculture, it's locked in the industrial model of agriculture. Heavily laden with pesticides and chemicals, the use of those chemicals and pesticides tied to the traits and the seeds. So farmers are locked in with little choice. So when we're trying to unravel this, or your organization and others, Meryl, are trying to unravel this, it's all tied into this monopoly power. And that's what we're fighting, is that control by a handful of companies like Bayer, Monsanto, Syngenta, Kim China. Controlling this input.
So the Clayton and the Sherman Acts were passed by Congress in the late 1800s, I believe, in the 1890s, because the problem of monopolies then was so bad. And then again, and when they stopped enforcing those acts in the 1920s, we again had a lot of monopolies, and then they had to be broken up in the 1930s and 40s, and we had good enforcement of these laws through the 1950s and maybe 60s. But then, at least in agriculture, we had two big agriculture companies, Cargill and Archer Daniels Midland, in the 1970s. And they decided that they were going to gain massive political power. And this, again, according to your report. Okay, so I'm just repeating from the report. Archer Daniels Midland spent many millions of dollars. They bought up politicians. They donated to politicians. They got almost every politician in Congress. And they also donated to media companies. And they bought 10% of a newspaper chain. So they were able to get this massive publicity supporting their monopolization. And so then they went forward, and we should talk about the Farm Bill, because the Farm Bill was, so USDA was started in the 1860s under Lincoln. And the idea was to help farmers. Remember, Jefferson thought that the United States should be a country of small landholders, small farmers. And so we wanted to, these people wanted to encourage farmers. I mean, obviously farmers are necessary to the life of a nation as well as the life of its people. But so the Farm Bill was initiated to assist farmers, because when crop prices went down or animal prices went down, farmers would go out of business, and then there wouldn't be enough food. So that's a problem, right? And so attempts were made to figure out how the government could smooth out those problems and keep surplus grains so that in bad years the government could release grains and it could smooth out the price differentials. And so a farm bill was initiated, and more money was put into the USDA for this farm bill. And why don't you tell us how that money was initially used and then how it changed?
Yeah, thank you, Meryl. I think you mentioned ADM and the power and the politics of these corporations, and then donating to politicians. I mentioned Ronald Reagan coming in. That's when that power, that political power, began to show its influence in Washington, D.C. What we saw before, farmers, I'm going to talk about two things: crop insurance, and then I'm going to talk about subsidies, government subsidies outside of crop insurance. In the past, as you mentioned, government had a supply management model in an effort to make sure that the pricing in the market worked in abundant years, not unlike we've been taught in other countries and other times. In abundant years, put a little bit aside, because the drought's coming. So government would be involved in managing that surplus. It stabilized price for farmers and put aside a surplus. So in bad years, that surplus could be drawn into the marketplace, more evening out food prices, cost, and sustaining the farmer. So a supply management model. Well, by 1996, we were full on where monopoly power, political influence, big is better, came to Washington, D.C. And in 1996, there was something called the Freedom to Farm Bill. And that bill backed up. There was other provisions along the way, but it really culminated in 96, where we abandoned that supply management model and we went to the current model, which is really designed to further consolidate agriculture, farms, fewer farmers, farming bigger for the big monopoly companies. I mean, why do they want to buy from 100 farmers? Why not just work with one farmer? How do you do that? You drive 99 of them out of business. And so that's what Freedom to Farm began to do: consolidate wealth, move that money to the biggest farmers, allow them then to purchase up land. Banks joined in. where bankers would say, well, you really need to lease your land to Billy Bob, because Billy Bob, he's going to be our farmer in this county. So farmers became just landholders, and then later they would sell their land as the consolidation of wealth. So 1996, Freedom to Farm Bill became cash payments to farmers through commodity programs and through crop insurance. Today, crop insurance, I think we're going to talk a little bit about the reconciliation bill. It's really become a guarantee for profit for the largest farms in this country. So we moved away from a supply management model to one that is supported big, getting bigger or getting out.
Right. And Earl Butz said that in the early 1970s when he was the Secretary of Agriculture under Nixon, and that began a complete change in the federal government programs under, as you said, both the Dems and the Republicans to basically consolidate farming. Now, it's unclear why they thought that was a good idea, but certainly big corporations can give bigger campaign contributions, et cetera, and can pay for more advertising and do everything else they want. We're talking about monopolies, but we're using the term monopoly, but maybe we should use the term oligopoly or cartel. Because in most cases, it's not just, at this point in time, it's not just one company, it's usually 3 or 4 companies, but they work together, they collude. That's illegal, but they do it anyway. They talk to each other and they plan their strategies so that they can price things out, and they sort of divide up the market so that all of them, the 3 or 4 of them, are making good money and can control the market. So yes, in 1996, Congress was given a bill that they passed called the Federal Agriculture Improvement and Reform Act, but it wasn't really an Improvement and Reform Act. It was changing the way government subsidies were going to be spent to basically give the money to the rich farmers and starve the poor farmers. So that's what happened in 1996, and it has been maintained since then. So taxpayers are now giving many billions of dollars a year to the biggest farmers and helping them to buy up the small farmers as they go out of business and to control the markets along with this input and output monopolies. Do you want to talk about that, or shall I go on? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, you're exactly right. That's what's going on. I would like to make a comment. The motivation was what we saw politically. We saw the Republican Party staying pretty true to their roots as it related to big business. The supporting of big business somehow, bigger is better. Ronald Reagan had believed in the trickle-down type theory. Economy to the wealthiest, it would come down and support the small. At the same time, the way they really advanced was through what was called the neoliberal movement, or the neoliberal side of the Democrat Party. And they had a vision for globalization. That's where we got WTO and got into this whole mess that Bill Clinton brought us. But those two segments got together, both the Republicans and then the neoliberal side of the Democrat Party. And that's how they really just believed in industrialization. They believed in industrial agriculture. They believed in big. And that's how politically those investments by those corporations into those campaigns led us to where we are today, where we have only an illusion of choice and farmers going broke.
So, but yes, this is a very important chart. And what it's telling you is in all of these industries, in this left-hand column, you'll see cotton, beef, nitrogen fertilizer, soybean crushing, soybean seeds, grocery stores, et cetera. The top 4 corporations control more than 50% of each of these industries. So each of these is an oligopoly or a cartel. If we go back to these subsidies, so there are a lot of subsidies in the Farm Bill, but there are 2 main ones, and one is this crop, what's it called? Well, it doesn't matter. There's a lot of subsidies. How many billions of dollars a year? 30 billion, 40 billion go to the cartels? Tell us, Joe.
In in the past, depending on the year and the amount, it's kind of complex, but the base payments have been about $26 billion a year. There have been increases that the Secretary's done due to trade wars. Secretary of Agriculture has increased that through a lending program that's available, the CCC. So 26 to about $36 billion. The recent bill, the big beautiful bill, nestled in there is big gets bigger, is an increase of $67 billion over a 10-year period. So an additional $6.7 billion is going to go out to the farm safety net. And that money goes to less than 40% of the farmers in America. Just driving home how this whole model is designed to further consolidate and concentrate our food system into an industrial model heavily laden with chemicals. Over 60% of the farmers will not receive any of the increase that was provided for within the reconciliation, the big beautiful bill.
Yes, and in general, 10 to 20% of farmers get virtually all of these subsidies. This large amounts, 25 to whatever, 35 to $40 billion a year in subsidies goes to the largest farmers who don't need it, which allows them to buy up the small farmers. I'm repeating myself, but this is important to know because this is why the U.S. is losing 63 farms a day. We have lost 160,000 farms, 8% of our farms over a 7-year period between 2017 and 2024. And the federal government, your taxpayer, your taxes are paying to put these farmers out of business, essentially, and enlarge the large farms, which are using more chemicals, which are not producing the foods we want. And so another reason for this subsidy program to work in a terrible way is that certain crops are given the subsidies while other crops can't get the subsidies. And so what crops are they that are being gifted with all this money? And those are corn and soy primarily, also wheat, also a few others, some lentils. But what's happening is we've got this massive overproduction of corn and soy. And where does it go? Some of it goes to ethanol, some of it goes to animal feed, but a lot of it goes to producing the ultra-processed food with no nutritional value that we're feeding to our children and ourselves in the United States because there's an excess, so it's cheap, but it's of no benefit to our health, but it satisfies us, and they add things to make it taste good. And so we, with our farm subsidies, are subsidizing the worst possible food that we know how to, maybe we could make it worse. But a lot of bad food, so bad oils, polyunsaturated oils from corn and soy that are not good for us, high fructose corn syrup, and these grain products that have been processed so they're devoid of the seed and devoid of the vitamins and the minerals. Yeah. So, and what was said in your report was that this was the 7th big merger wave in the history of the United States. So I thought that was pretty interesting. The historians then know what's happened before. It's happened over and over again. And then before the country completely sinks, the government finally steps in and does something. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, well, we have been here before. I want to make a couple points. First, we have been here before. It wasn't the government that stepped in. It was the people. The people stepped in. Government didn't just, those same politicians that had gotten us there before were not the elected officials that got us out of there. Because the people stepped in. And they demanded change. That's where we are today. This system of heavily subsidizing grains that provide us the ultra-processed foods and cheap feed grains and fuel, but deny us nutritious vegetables and fruits because we're importing those. We're not feeding The big ag, industrial ag says we feed the world in the U.S. That is a lie. We don't even feed ourselves. We're importing the majority of our fruits, our food crops, while we overproduce our feed crops and corn syrup and crops that support an industrial, heavily chemically laden agricultural system. And the taxpayers are funding that. We can't get, until we get our government, our elected officials, to focus on healthy foods and healthy farms, and by healthy farms, I mean financially healthy for all the farmers, not just the biggest farmers. We're not going to have the food on our plates that we deserve, a healthy plate for our children and ourselves, until we, the people, rise up and demand that in Washington, D.C. These folks are going to keep doing the same thing for the same goddamn campaign contributions they've been doing that got us here. So government didn't change. The people demanded it. The people rose up first.
And we are trying to use this modest platform to educate you as to what you're not seeing in the grocery store and what you don't know, because the media do not cover this tremendous loss of farmers that we're going through. That you may have noticed in my town, we have 2 grocery stores, both of them remodeled about 5 years ago, right before COVID, so that they could have smaller, fresh food areas. They remodeled to get more cans on the shelves and get rid of fresh food. It's a travesty. People don't realize most of your olive oil is adulterated with other oils, bad oils. Food is not being has not been checked for a number of years, properly by the FDA and USDA to make sure that it meets its claims. And the actual label claims that the government requires have changed to make it harder for you to understand what's in your food. So now they have a new label designation called bioengineered foods. And who knows what that means? So instead of telling you that there was a certain GMO or what the actual ingredients were, it just says bioengineered ingredients. And you're supposed to be happy with that. And, under that designation, they could put in insects or anything else they want. The government has not been good to us. We have not been educated to understand what's going on. And so that's why I have this weekly series to educate the public about what's happening in the world of food and farms. And we hope you will all join us at Door to Freedom. Go to the farmaction.us website. Look at the reports they've done and it's a wealth of information. You won't find better information anywhere. And learn about this problem and then work with us so we can fix it and get the foods we need back into the grocery stores on our tables. And thank you very much. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Second.
We're live.
Hi.
Tell everyone your name.
My name is Sonia Hoffman.
Okay, Sonia, so this is about mandatory Hep B. Mm-hmm. Is it about you?
It is about me.
All right, take us back. Take us right back to what happened.
It is a long story, and trying to sum it all up. I was in respiratory school to become a respiratory therapist in 1998, or I graduated in 1998. I guess the year prior. Before we could begin our clinical rotations in the hospital, it was mandatory that we all have the 3 series hepatitis B vaccine. I was so uneducated as far as vaccines at that time, unfortunately, and of course too naive and trusting anyway. So it was probably a year and a half later when kind of a downward spiral as far as my health started. Long story short, it has been over 20 plus years now of what was eventually diagnosed as myalgic encephalomyelitis, what used to be called chronic fatigue syndrome. And yeah, it is, most people like looking at me, like right now, they're like, you don't look sick. And I like to say, I'm good at a lot of gaslighting, especially in the early years. People with this disease, a lot of medical gaslighting and psychological, which it was of course proven to not have a psychological basis, but truly be it's a neuroinflammatory disease. But even doctors would minimalize and trivialize it and say, you don't look sick. You don't look like you don't look like a sick person. You're even faking. A lot of people get accused of that, unfortunately. And it's, in reality, we're not faking being sick, we're faking being well. There's so much I could say. Prior to, and it's progressed every year, has gotten more difficult as far as 50% of people that end up, and it all goes back to the hepatitis B vaccine. I've been to so many alternative practitioners and Western medicine, but it all goes back to that. Basically, people like me are just surviving. 50% of people like me, cannot work, and those that do work are able to work. It's at the sacrifice of something else. It's like that's all they can do is work, or vice versa. If they have a personal life, a home life, they can't do everything. They probably, whereas most people have 12 to 15 usable hours in a day. A person like me would have maybe 5 or 6 or less. And I would probably be classified as moderate, but the point that I would really love for people to know is finally in 2015, the CDC had the National Academy of Medicine convey a panel, and that's when they renamed it to myalgic encephalomyelitis. I'm sorry, my mouth's so dry. They convened a panel.
She's drinking water, not beer.
Oh yes, it is water. I got it from your people.
Just in case people think.
It's such ridiculousness to me. Won't get ready to tell you. The CDC website, if you look up MECFS on the CDC website, the first thing you're going to see is this little downloadable, printable handout. Could you have MECFS? And it names some symptoms, and then at the bottom it says we drew this list of key symptoms from the Institute of Medicine report by an expert committee of the National Academies of Science, Engineering, Medical in 2015, the name of which is Beyond Myalgic Encephalomyelitis Chronic Fatigue Syndrome, Redefining an Illness. So if you actually go, and there's a link right there on that CDC page that you can click, and it takes you to this 305-page study. Okay, the first page, hold on, let's see, where's it? The first page, summary. It says the cause of this disease remains unknown. although in many cases, symptoms are triggered by the first thing they listed, immunizations, then infections or other trauma and other prodromal events. So I just think it's just really ironic that they convened a panel, the best of the best, to study this, and the first page of that report says they don't know the cause, but in cases where it happens, the triggers, and the first trigger is immunizations. So how ridiculous
Talk to us
is
about
that?
these photos. What are these photos?
Before I started kind of spiraling downhill, and
are we still live? Oh, well, that was fun, wasn't it? Sorry, guys.
It's not interview.
No, it's a wire. Just got. Sure what's going on?
Okay.
There we are. We're still live. Yep. Are you still with us, everybody? Sorry, you got shaking around a bit on the bus floor, but there we go. All right, off we go. Where were we?
Okay.
Fun thing about being live.
A lot of people that wind up having this, interestingly, there seems to be a correlation that they were very active, very, I don't want to say high achievers, but they were very active. And I was. I love life. I mean, I still love life, even though I feel like a large portion of it's been taken from me. But I was an equestrian, and here's just a couple pictures. This was actually right before I got diagnosed.
So they can see. That's a beautiful horse.
Isn't he? He's a Frisian. The name's Dan.
So you can't ride anymore?
I probably could. Oh gosh, the mental energy it takes. Even I can't do it on the level that I did. I probably could ride for a little bit, but nothing as far as the level of competition and things as involved as I was prior to. I could not. It's survival, and people see me on days where I do have the energy to put on makeup or do my hair. They don't see me the 15 days of the month where I'm in bed all day, and my 86-year-old mother has to take care of me.
I'm sorry.
So it's just, so deceiving looks for, I'm recently moved closer to my mom and dad to take care of them. My dad is 89, my mom's 86. Not the other way around. But, I don't know what else to say.
Well, I think you've done a beautiful job of telling your story. And I'm so sorry this happened to you.
Thank you. And certainly so many people are so much worse than I am. I mean, I have at least half of a month usually that I feel okay, that I can do half of what a normal person can do. But so many people are so much worse than me. So
thank you for telling your story.
Thank you. Thank you guys. I appreciate y'all more than I can express.
History doesn't wait. This is our moment to rise, unite, and reclaim our children's health.
Join us here in Austin, Texas this November at the Children's Health Defense Conference.
In the wake of unprecedented medical overreach and censorship, the world is waking up, and people like you are leading the way.
We're at a turning point in history. With the pandemic behind us, our fight for freedom and health has reached the global stage.
This is our moment of truth, and we're ready to seize it together.
And Children's Health Defense has been at the forefront of this charge. Our 2025 conference brings together the leaders, visionaries, and warriors who made it happen.
Meet the parents whose lives were forever changed, and hear from doctors who risked everything to speak out. Stand with those who refused to be silenced.
You are going to hear from world-renowned speakers, doctors, and frontline leaders driving the medical freedom movement.
Discover real-world solutions grounded in science, integrity, and human rights.
Join the discussion to talk about vaccines, informed consent, parental rights, and so much more.
And you'll of course hear from your favorite CHD personalities, sharing the latest on CHD's research, litigation, and outreach.
And while you're there, soak up the energy, culture, and music of beautiful Austin, Texas.
Whether you're a parent, a practitioner, or a medical freedom advocate, this is your call to action to protect what matters most.
Be part of the movement that is rewriting the story for generations to come.
So please join us.
Join us.
Join us. Let's make history together in Austin.